Hi, my name's Michael, and today I want to talk to you a bit about women in translation. And the reason why I want to do this is because in August there is this push to read more women in translations, and it's kind of like a campaign where bloggers have been getting together every August to read more women in translation. Similar to what happens for Austin in August, or other theme type reading months, and this is a bit different to a readathon. Basically, the idea is to dedicate a month of just reading for in this case, women in translation. And while I won't be doing that officially, I do want to talk about women in translation because it is a very small portion of books. If you think about all the books that are printed in English, the percentage of books that are translated from another language is such a small percentage, and there are books like classics that get printed more, but newer books and books that are quite considered classics never seem to get as much attention. And I have dedicated myself to read more books in translation. I had set the goal of reading 50% of my reading to be translations, and I quickly discovered that women in translation is such a tiny percentage of the books being read. I think it's about 30% of all books printed in English that are translations are written by women, and unfortunately that is a bit of a problem, especially when I think about doing a video like this and I look on my shelves trying to scan for books in translated in women, and I pick up things like Wild Swans, which is not actually translated, and then I have to go, alright, let me try and find translated books because I don't organise my shelves, so it can be a bit of a search trying to find a book. And surprisingly, there are not many translations on my shelf. I only have recently dedicated myself to read more books in translation. I have only recently tried to balance out my reading life in that way. So there are a lot of books on my shelves that are originally written in English that are still unread, but I don't feel like getting rid of them. A lot of books I would like to get to eventually, and there are probably books there that I probably will never read, but I'm worried about getting rid of them because what if it is a book that I'm going to really like? So I'm conflicted in that aspect, but I'm getting a bit off track. I want to just promote women in translation, and I can probably do that by promoting something like My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, and this is translated by Goldstein, and this series has got a lot of attention. I really love Elena Ferrante. I've been trying to read some of her standalone books. I have read recently The Days of Abandonment, which I think was able to pack a huge punch, and I think I liked the way she was able to tell the story and explore the emotions in such a short book, where with something like My Brilliant Friend, and that series is she tells this epic character-driven story over 4 books, and you get to know these characters and you get to follow them through all their ups and downs, and it's quite an emotional journey in a completely different way, and I like that, but I like the small big punch type novels better. And I'm thinking about reading The Lost Daughter soon, and I definitely want to read all of Elena Ferrante's books because I really like her style. Another book that gets a lot of attention at the moment is Fever Dreams, and I really enjoyed this book. I think I compared it to Roberto Bolaño's book A Night in Chile, and I'm so pleased that this one's got a lot of attention lately. So that's something also to consider if you want to read more women in translation. And another one, obviously, The Vegetarian by Kang, and this is translated by Deborah Smith, and this won the Man Booker International Prize last year, and that was quite impressive because it was the launch of the Man Booker International Prize in that format. It had been a different prize under a different name previously, but to bring it to such a spotlight and have a woman translator and a woman in translation win was quite impressive. And another book that I love that I read last year was Bonjour, Tristesse, and this is by Sagan, and I think this one got a lot of attention as well when it was re-released in English, and I think that's quite impressive. I think the new translation had been the first uncensored version of the book, which leaves me questioning what was censored out, because I don't think there was much in the book that was worth censoring. And those are a few books that I would recommend without going into the classics, because you could probably read something like The Diary of a Girl by Anne Frank if you want to read something more classic related. But there are other things like When the Doves Disappear, which I'm really glad I read, and I wish I was smarter, because I definitely want to return to this. This is a book that kind of explores communism in Estonia, and it's set in two different periods where the communists were in full control of where the rebellion is kind of gaining power, and the effect that has on the people and the way they are oppressed in the different aspects. And that was interesting because you see one person that you think is one way, but then you see when the regime the power kind of shifts, that their opinion shifts as well, when they've got the freedom or they are shifting with the power, and you've got to try and understand what's going on there. Another book I wish I was smarter to understand is The Fox Was Ever the Hunter by Herta Müller. And I read her because she was a Nobel Prize winner, and I was trying to get more Nobel Prize winners under my belt. But this is extremely haunting and beautifully written, but very complex. And I struggled with this book really to fully grasp everything that was going on with it. But that's the challenge. I like a book that challenges me, and I will probably be returning to it sometime in the future, just so I can finally say I've defeated the book. And if you prefer non-fiction, one I recommend is Svetlana Alexievich, and this is Secondhand Time. This is an oral history of the last days of the Soviet era, and she goes and interviews people and just gets their opinions and collates that. And while she kind of directs the questioning a bit, I think it's really interesting to get the different people's opinions of what's happening. And she's also a Nobel Prize winner, and this book was fascinating. One that I just finished is No Place to Lay One's Head by Françoise Frenkel, and this is translated by Samanta Smee. And I might do a review on this one because this was interesting, and I have a few things to say. This is about a woman telling her story being a French bookseller in Berlin before World War II, but she was a Polish Jew, and with the whole political scene changing, kind of explores that. And I'll probably talk about this one more in a review because I have a few thoughts worth exploring. And probably my new favourite is The Lovers by Marguerite Duras, and I absolutely adored this book. I actually want to reread this book already, even though I read it a few months ago, and I might actually do that in August because it was such a beautiful book, and it's one of those books I want to read over and over again because I just love what she did with her writing. I just love how she explored her emotions and her opinions in a way that was self-reflecting, and also telling the reader how she felt at the time. And it's such a beautiful book, even though it's a tragic love story. So there are a couple of books that I have read recently and enjoyed, or feel like I need to be a better reader to understand. So I just want to quickly talk about a couple of books I would love to read. Maybe I'll read them this month, just to be part of Women in Translation for August. And obviously I need to read some more Kang, so Human Acts is one that I need to get through, and I've heard good things about that one as well. I'm not going to really talk about the plot because I think most people know that Tefi is a Russian poet and she doesn't get talked about enough, so I definitely need to get through Rasputin and Other Ironies. This is a collection of stories, a collection of essays, a collection of poetry. I think all three of them are explored in this, and it will be a good way to dip into Tefi's writing because I read a lot of Russian literature, but I don't think I've read enough women in translation from Russia. And one that I think I need to read after reading No Place to Lay One's Head is this one, Sweet Francis. And I won't talk about this one either because I think a lot of people know this one. This is a pretty well-known book. It was lost and rediscovered and then translated it into English, and the tragic story. Finally, I'm going to have to read this and probably going to make this one my priority because I feel like this is a book I should have read already, and hopefully this month I'll get to tick that one off my list. So let me know your thoughts about women in translations, and I'd love to know your recommendations. I'd love to know of any books that you would love to read that are women in translation. I'd love to know just more about translations in particular, but let's focus on women in translation because they don't get enough attention. If you want to find me elsewhere, all my links to social media are in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.